Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Sober Life Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Jones, coming to you right here from the Sober Life Studios in the offices of One Brother, One Sister. And we want to thank you for joining us. And as always, before we start, I'm going to remind you, if you like this show, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get reminders, and share this with your friends. And if you don't like it, do all the things I said 3 times. All right, because then you'll figure out why you're wrong. But this is a show we like to do, and we like to talk about all things recovery. We definitely talk about recovery stories, treatment centers, recovery life in general. Sober life is not just about not drinking and using. It's about thriving and living out loud. So that's what we like to talk about. And this is one of my favorite guys on the planet. This is Marc Effron, who is the founder and CEO, COO,
co-founder.
Okay, you're the co-founder in the coup.
Yeah,
in the you're the coup, COO of Legacy Healings. Marc, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. It's great to be here.
Yeah,
You're one of my favorite guys too.
Well, we always hit it off right from the beginning. I mean, so the first day we met, you thought I didn't like you though,
Fact.
because I was miserable that day.
Was it you? I thought it was me.
We were having lunch somewhere.
We were having lunch up in up Gateway in Delray Beach.
Yeah, and we just done something. I don't know. I was just like, I was not in the mood for the lunch. I was not. So I sat there and I was pretty quiet.
I said,
found out later, it's like, I didn't think you liked me. I always liked you.
it wasn't a bad energy. It was more like once I heard about who you were and your involvement, your commitment, and your journey, I immediately felt like, all right, maybe I'm the new kid on the block. I don't know if he's gonna like me. Let me put my best foot forward. But here we are.
No, here we are, and we've done different things together. We've done trainings with you, and we've been over at your place, and we've had many meals together and different things. And I got to tell you, first of all, I want to know a little bit about you, and then we got a lot we want to cover today. But Legacy Healing. This is to me, when I walk into the place, I'm like, this is what treatment should be. Is that what I mean? I don't look around and say, oh, I would change that. I would change. It's what treatment I think should be. Was that your goal? Was to really create that utopia?
You know, the answer is yes. I had no idea it was going to grow into what it's been blessed to be for countless team members that we have, because we don't have employees, we have team members, right? So like long-term vision and the planning, and what we wanted to do was ultimately create a place. My business partner and I, and co-founder Ben Fox, he's our CEO also. I've known Ben 24 years. He was my running mate. So when we set out back in 2014, it was really to create a place strong enough that one of my kids could go there. Right. So the long-term vision was always that, so you could be comfortable when you walk in, but the treatment and the modalities that were there were good enough for my own kids. That's always been the plan. Yeah.
Well, and a lot of the things that you do there aren't things that you were exposed to when you were going through your treatment and stuff. Why did you decide you needed more? Because obviously the treatment worked because you're here and you're sober today. But why all the extras when you really don't have to do that?
I think in fairness, you know, the treatment that I submitted to back the first time in 2006, and I wasn't ready. You know, there was a breakdown in the treatment center that I went to of what they were actually delivering. See, people go into treatment, they go in with all these problems, right? They walk in with IRS issues and family issues and dynamics and legal issues and self-esteem and self-worth issues. They walk in with this mountain of problems. Most treatment centers, you leave with the same mountain of problems. So we go above and beyond because that's how we live our life today. We go above and beyond. The standard is so high personally. Now, listen, man, I like to have fun. I like to put my hat on backwards. I'll put my sandals on. I'll be out on the soccer pitch with my kids. I'll be out laughing and being silly with my wife and my friends and my family. But when it comes to the business of serving other people and business of saving lives, we don't water that down. So we go above and beyond. We do the organic juicing. We have the wellness program built into our system. We do the biofeedback beds. We do a lot of things that other programs don't. We want to get into the brain. We don't want to just treat the outside, because as you and I know from a sobriety standpoint, it's an inside job. Right. So brain pain is a perfect example of that. Neurofeedback. dealing with the prefrontal cortex. We want to get in and look at that document and see where the trauma is, see where the pain is, and then start treating it from the inside. We don't want to just shuffle people around. The treatment that I submitted to didn't have any of that.
Right.
I'll never forget the place that I went to in Cooper City, Florida. I'll leave the name out, but man, like what a hellhole that was. That's where I ended up, and that's where I needed to be. But that was a complete shit show.
Well, there used to be this old thing that they used to say, why give them all of these upper end services when they're not used to them and they're not going to get them when they go back to the ghettos that they're from or these bad places that they're from? Why tease them with a good life? But that's really backwards thinking, isn't it? Shouldn't we be showing them a good life in healthy things?
Absolutely. That's why we don't, like I said, I use the term water it down.
Yeah.
Right. We want people to wake up in a home that's clean, that's well maintained, that's beautiful. So they feel some sort of like, wait a minute, this is what sobriety is like. I can achieve this. We become, there's an old adage, like, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you your life. Right. Or the term proximity, the environment that we're in. We want to create the healthiest environment while they're in treatment so that when they leave, they feel like, wow, this is attainable for me. We want to go above and beyond.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
I love that.
Me too.
You got to get jazzed when you walk through there and say, wow, it came together. Because I know whenever you're starting a business, it always doesn't feel like this is going to work, right?
No, but we almost went out of business a couple of times the first year.
Right.
I'll never forget that. But it's not Ben. It's not me. Yes, we had the vision. Yes, we hold the bar and the standard. Ben does a phenomenal job navigating the operations and the business side of things. It's our team. We've been able to have, we have a couple of sayings. One is that we're ladies and gentlemen caring for ladies and gentlemen. That's one. The second one that we have is one team, one vision, one mission. We navigate with that, and we've had enough team members buy into that vision of like, hey, we're just one. We're moving in one direction, and there's one mission. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So that, I think, is the success of Legacy, is the culture that Ben and I have been blessed to be able to be a part of building.
And that's the culture from top to bottom and bottom to top. It's not the place where you go in, and we've all seen them where you go in and half the employees are disgruntled or they're upset or they're just kind of phoning it in and they're not engaged. I don't see that when I go to Legacy. When I go to Legacy, I see everybody stepping up, and they're doing it with smiles and they're doing it with joy. And that's important because that's what the clients are going to carry with them.
100%. And you become a product of your environment.
Right.
Like if the standard is high enough. Listen, man, I was having this conversation with my wife last night about our children and how they have these natural attributes, right? And abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And our kids are totally different. Maven is 12. They're both elite athletes. They're God-fearing boys. They're good boys. They're growing up in the same home, but their grit, their commitment looks a little bit different. And I was talking about standards. I was saying, listen, if we want to get a different result for our kids, we got to raise our own standard for them. We got to teach them first a belief system that supports their standard. Without that, they're not going to get a different result. Hmm. And I think the same is true in business too. When you hold yourself to a high standard in business, if you want to get a different result, you have to have core beliefs. And we've just been blessed to have a lot of people buy in. I think part of it is ladies and gentlemen, caring for ladies and gentlemen. If I treat you like a gentleman and you treat me like a gentleman, that produces a different workflow and environment. Then you and I together as gentlemen can then go share that with the end user, which is the loved one being sent to us, right? And a lot of places don't operate that way. Forget about treatment. Just businesses don't operate that way.
Right. Well, there's an expectation that clients are supposed to come in and just behave themselves and do the right things and show that. But they haven't learned that yet.
Yeah.
So your environment and your staff are the ones who are going to show that to them by showing them respect, showing each other respect, and doing all of that right up front so that the clients can learn and become the ladies and gentlemen that they want to be, or that they could be.
No different than in a home.
Yes.
As parents, I mean, especially in 2024, parents they're not focused on their kids the way that they should be. My wife and I are focused on our children very different than the way she was raised or the way that I was raised.
Yeah.
Right. I grew up in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's where I grew up. The men that came before me, such as yourself, right? I wasn't lucky to meet you early in my journey. I'm meeting you now, which is perfect timing because you're just another example of, a man that's doing the deal, right? You show up, you're battle tested, you're a warrior, you're part of the deal. The guys that I was around, they didn't look like me, sound like me, talk like me, but they said, "Hey kid, come on. This is where we're going." They had to set a new standard for me because my dad didn't teach that to me. I don't blame him. My dad was a great guy, but he didn't have.
People only work with what they have. I mean, to expect them to have something they don't have is ridiculous. Yeah. So what you got to do is you got to look at the effort and the idea behind what they're doing. But that's all good. I want to do this real quick. Yeah. And if anybody wants to know more about Legacy, there's a phone number, 888-858-0137. And of course, you can go to intake@legacyhealing.com. Locations: Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You've also got Parsippany, New Jersey. Yeah. So you got the top and bottom. And Cherry Hill, don't worry, I'm not coming back. I know you kicked me out of Cherry Hill, and they didn't want me back in Jersey ever again. So maybe I can go back now. Cincinnati, Ohio, Fort Lauderdale, and Margate, Florida. So you got 5 locations, and you're constantly looking at trying to expand. It's not expand as far as you want to be a monopoly, but to reach more people, right?
100%.
That's what it's really about, is reaching more people.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when we first sought out, Ben and I, and I got to give credit to Ben for the Margate location and then our housing out west in Coral Springs. Back then there was a boom in South Florida. It was a hard hit area, the capital of treatment, capital of recovery also, for that matter. But it was a very different environment. It was a company or product polluted environment back then. He said, "Hey, listen, let's go further west." I said, "That's crazy." He said, "No, let's go further west." And the more that I thought about it, the more we could isolate and protect the client, right? We could get bigger homes out west. To your point earlier, what's the environment that we're going to create?
Right.
And that first year, we almost went out of business a couple of times. It was a scary time, because you don't know what you don't know,
right,
until you know it. And Margate evolved into us buying an acute level care hospital to detox so we could have a higher level of care. That evolved into Cherry Hill, New Jersey, your old stomping ground and area, right? That evolved into Cincinnati. And these were all identified as hard hit areas where we could get into the communities. We could be good partners, good neighbors, and have impact. The whole idea is to have impact. It's not to have more beds or more locations. It's to be able to have impact in communities and help families heal. So we've got the treatments in the locations. We've got the housing in the locations. And then each location has a family program that's attached to it. So we've been able to really have massive impact. Like our Fort Lauderdale location on Friday nights is open to the general public. You don't have to have a loved one in our care to be able to come in and have family repair and restoration and healing begin. So it's a family disease, man, as you know, and I'm sure your listeners know. My family wasn't involved. They dropped me off. My dad said, "Good luck." And my brother, literally, he let my ass hit the ground. It bounced back up and got me into treatment.
Right.
And my brother's the one, my brother Michael is the one who dropped me off. He dropped me off with a trash bag, Sports Illustrated, a bag of beef jerky, and a tin of dip, right? I chew tobacco still. It's my one vice that I got left. And, so the rest is kind of where we're at. Like, we want to continue to grow, but we want to go to the places that are hard hit areas.
Now, one of the reasons I really like you, Mark, is because you're always expanding and thinking about what can I do better? What can I do different in the treatment world? And by the way, call them and check them out. Look online, go visit and tour. But this is really important. People will research a used car more than they'll research a place to get their kids clean and sober. Yeah. They need to go look at the place, talk to people, and you always invite that. But as much as you are into expanding and learning new things, you're also into your own personal journey as well. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
I'd love to.
I thought at the beginning of my sobriety that not drinking and using was the end all and be all of what sobriety was. I thought once I do that, don't drink and don't use, my life is going to be fine. And it's a coast, it's a breeze. But I realized personal growth and things that I can do, the whole world opens up to us. And it's really up to us to take advantage of that and to grow beyond just existing. And you're doing that. You follow people and you get involved. Tell me about some of the things, or what was that first moment when you said, I need to grow past all of this?
I've had a few moments.
Okay. All right.
I've had a few moments. And one of the greatest moments was early in recovery. I'll say the following, not to impress anybody, but to press upon certain facts and experiences that I'm no better or worse than any human being. I don't believe that I am, but I'll go back to the word standard. When I first got sober, I didn't have a lot. I didn't even have self-esteem or self-worth. So when all that started to come through and going through steps and going to meetings and going on retreats and following men and getting to diners, and having diner food, right?
Those diner days.
Diner days, you get there early, you stay late, the meeting before the meeting after the meeting, all those experiences, I began to grow and evolve into a guy that I was enjoying being, right? Then what happens is they tell you, don't judge anybody, let God do that for you.
All right.
And the more that I got closer to a relationship with a higher power, right, that third step, that 11th step, the more that I began to seek, right, something happened inside of me that I wanted more of that. And that's kind of like the DNA of a drug addict. Like, I just want more. And here's what happened is it can become unpopular because you start to evolve and you start to change. And then people say, well, you've changed. And what I learned in sobriety is that's part of the deal. Like, death and taxes are going to happen, but change is inevitable if you allow it. So as I began to change, people around me began to change. And the people that wanted to see me do well and win and grow, they stuck by my side, and other people passed judgment. That was the first moment of like separating myself, no better, no worse, but saying, all right, these guys don't want me to win. They're kind of judgmental. Got to get rid of them. I want more of the guys that want to love on me. They don't want anything from me. They just want to see me win. So I started to attach to more people like that. And I started to win more, just win internally, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I started to get around more people that wanted to help me to pray, show me different ways of prayer. And I walked through some really hard stuff in sobriety, right? It was not like, I'm definitely highly motivated and I'm smiling today, but there was a lot of pain. Right. And it was in those moments, the growth, right? So you got peaks and valleys, and in the valley where it's dark and you kind of feel alone and you don't know if you can accomplish much, right? Because we get our ass handed to us. We get beat into submission. Our scorecard reads 0. Next thing we know, we're on this journey of like, don't drink, go to meetings, get a sponsor, do the meetings, right? What happened was I was in a valley and it was dark and my life got turned upside down in sobriety, and things happened that I never in a million years thought would happen. Like, if you gave me a pen and said, hey, write down the top 5 things that you think that you're going to relapse over, all 5 of those things happen within a 24-hour period.
Wow.
I didn't drink. I didn't get high. I lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks. I couldn't speak. And it was in that moment, that was the most, I guess the word would be like, impact in my own life of change, right? So I wound up driving down the road one day. Now, I'm a Jewish kid from Boston, right? Not a practicing Jew, but I'm a Jewish kid from Boston who goes to meetings and churches. And I'm driving down this road, a road that I had driven down 1,000 times before. The radio's off, the phone is off. I'm kind of emotional, brink of tears, and my car takes me into a parking lot. And I walk up to the door of this church and I knock on the door. I say, is the pastor there? He said, I'm the pastor. What can I do for you? I said, I have no idea, but I need to talk to somebody. And that's when I met Pastor TJ of Coastal Community Church in Parkland. And we sat in his green room for 2.5 hours. Wow. It was in that moment that the real journey of growth began for me as a man. And that's where healing and restoration began. And that was the second moment for me. And the third moment, and that took a couple of years of healing for me. That was my 11th year of sobriety. That I was driving down the road and I knocked on this door. Most recently, 14 months ago, I hired a coach.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that. That's great.
And here's what happened is I woke up one morning, we kicked this thing off today, and I'm so grateful to be here, but we kicked this thing off talking about how amazing legacy is, and it is. and I have a wife and children, and business is good, and I can show up for my family. All these beautiful things are happening. And then I get hit at 11 years and I grow, and I wake up one day 14 months ago and I said, there's more. There's more. I feel like I'm getting called for more, but I don't know how to get there. It was kind of like that moment early in sobriety where like, maybe I can stay sober. Maybe I can't. Let me ask somebody for help.
Yeah.
So I called that pastor.
But it's also that decision point. I know probably what I should do, but am I willing to do it? I'm looking at this ladder and I can climb it, but am I really willing to do that? And that's one of those stopgap moments in most people's lives where a lot of people might turn away from that ladder and never see what's put right in front of them. You decided to climb.
I love the vision because that's exactly the feeling that I had. I could see the ladder and I'm climbing the rungs of the ladder, but there was like a door that I knew if I opened the door, there's more rungs, but I didn't know what was on the other side. Buddy, I asked for help. That top door opened up. I kept on climbing and I met this guy, Chris Hart, who's now my coach. And I meet with him every Wednesday at 11 o'clock. So I had a meeting with him before I got here. And he talks about vision. He talks about standard. He talks about God. He talks about serving others. He talks about personal development and stretching my thinking. That's not stuff that I was going to get in AA. And with that comes a lot of vision. And sometimes I'm understood. Sometimes I'm not. The closer you get to me, the more people tend to understand me. Right. And I don't necessarily need to be understood. I just know that I'm called to do something. And so every morning, my commitment is to be in alignment, to go vertical in prayer before I go horizontal, and then serve whoever's closest to my proximity. Whatever comes on my plate is meant to be there. That's a really safe place for me to be, like serving others in alignment, asking for help. Because my entire life, I never felt safe. I always felt vulnerable. I always felt like I was going to get used or abused or cheated on or some bullshit story I would tell myself. So it's a really cool place to be when you're focused on, you know what? Limitations are the only ones I set on myself. And the people around me support me to break those limitations. And that's most human beings. You don't even have to be in recovery. Most people I know put limitations on themselves. I mean, shit. My son is 12. Maven is 12. And the limitations that he puts on himself at 12. So now I have the tools to be able to help him unlock or climb the ladder himself, right? So many gifts in sobriety, you know, when we tap into that and walk through fear. And I never would be able to be where I'm at had I not walked through most of my pain, because that's really where I grew, was the pain.
You know, it's funny because a lot of the rules that you apply that when you're in recovery or using a 12-step program or something like that, which is you need people around you, you need fellowship, you need a sponsor, somebody to guide you, you need goals and paths, and you need to open your eyes, you need to be focused on today, one day at a time, but not ignore your future or your past either, because we got to grow from those things. So all these things are a microcosm of what really goes on in real life, because here you are, you want to grow beyond. Now we're at a point where we're growing beyond as a human being, and you're looking for these gurus, people to follow. And it's not, I don't want to say guru in a way that's nobody's sitting in a diaper on top of a mountain. Although there might be. Have you got one of those diapers and mountains?
I don't have diapers a diaper on a mountain guy, no.
But when I have an issue with business, I talk to somebody who has been successful in business. I don't talk to somebody who lost their business and is sitting home and eating bonbons and watching soap operas. I don't talk to them. I talk to those people. If I want to live a positive life, I put positive people in my life. So all these things are like little lessons we learned in early recovery that expand out to real life. And it never stops, does it?
No. And, you know, pain sometimes can be true. The truth can be painful. And people want to avoid pain and they want to seek pleasure. So they will find themselves telling themselves a story that's not even true about themselves, and then wonder why they don't get further along. The more I can get to the truth of who I am, flawed, not perfect, sinner, not a saint, and really tap into that, then I can actually unlock who I'm supposed to be. But we don't learn this stuff just if we stay in an isolated spot. A lot of people are afraid to take that step. I know that I was. I still am. I have no idea really, I have an idea of like the direction I want to go, but I don't know if that's the plan.
But you now have something that people don't have, is experiential evidence. Listen, I took the plunge and I was uncomfortable. I took the plunge anyway and it worked. And I was uncomfortable. I took the plunge anyway and it worked. And sometimes it doesn't work, but what you realize is, but it didn't kill me. And maybe I learned some lessons on the way too. It's forward moving. Light. We're human beings, not beings. Human beings would be sitting still like little beans. Human beings means being, means doing, means moving. That's what a human being is. We should be moving and growing constantly. You know, your job is done learning when you take your last breath. That's the only rule in life. And you're just one of those guys. I get so excited watching guys like you who just keep finding these things and saying, it's almost like, that's great. What's next? Let's keep going.
But I gotta share it too, right?
Oh,
so like
that's huge. Yeah,
you gotta share it, because I have this term I call an ecosystem. Like I got a lot of cool friends, right? They're just good guys. They're active. Some of them, look, I've kind of like the triangle, right? At the top of my pyramid, I have 4 men. I've got my good friend Jim. I've got Pastor TJ, Chris, and my sponsor. All 4 of those guys lead me back to God. They don't co-sign my stuff. They don't want to hear about the fluff or anything shiny. They just want to hear, hey, man, how are you living? How are you contributing? And when I'm jammed up, I can call them. Then I have 6 guys I do life with. That's my business partner, a couple of partners in the companies that I'm associated with, and then some of my friends. Those 6 guys, we have a lot of commonality, but our spiritual and our belief system looks a little bit different. I am responsible for taking what the 4 pour into me, into my ecosystem, my relationships, to bring some sort of balance, some sort of leadership, some sort of commonality, and maybe just some love to my boys, right? Then everybody else's service. I only got 24 hours. I don't think about my last breath often. I mean, it's interesting the way you said it, and I actually agree with you. But I got 24 hours. I got 1 day.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with that time? Year 11, when I got hit with some heavy stuff, I was suicidal. Drinking or drugging or, removing the pain that I was feeling really seemed like an option. That's a scary, scary place to be when you're 11 years sober and you don't want to live because the pain is so great. And it's even greater than that of when you first got sober.
Right.
When you first get sober, you don't really know pain. It's just really uncomfortable. At least it was for me. It was like, shit, what am I going to make of my life? Am I capable of doing this thing? Oh, got to go to another meeting. And then eventually, you get to another meeting and life starts to repair. Once life is repaired and things are good and it's taken on a new meaning, when all that seems like it's going to change, man, I got to tell you, like proximity of people that want to pour into you is really important.
Absolutely. It's funny because my relapse came at 12 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And I didn't have acute relapse. I had a 10-year relapse. And in that time, things happened, and it's not about my story today, but a lot of things happened. But what happened at the end of that 12 years was I'd come to a point where sober life was no longer serving me, and I was never serving it. So it became very empty and hollow and kind of like, I felt like I was living a lie in a sense. And actually the most truthful thing I did at that point was pick up a drink, because that was the only honest thing that I actually was sharing with people was I want to drink. So when I came back the second time, I came back in a very different place. I came back as a very sick human being who was dying from the disease and who was in a lot of trouble and just a lot of pain. And I grasped onto it differently. And it no longer was about just being an alcoholic or being an addict. I had to become a better human being. And that's when all those lessons and all those things they ask us to do about, seeking out higher power and being of service to other people and doing those things. It has nothing to do with Jack Daniels or Jim Beam. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got everything to do with building a human being that transcends the disease that he has. I always will have that, addiction, alcoholism, whatever I want to call it. But I've been able to transcend that because I continue to grow as a human being. The one thing our disease does not want us to do is grow.
It doesn't want it. It wants us dead.
it wants us dead, or at least wants us as a plaything for a while. If dead was fast, it would be really easy disease, but it's not. It plays with us and tortures those around us and our children and our wives and husbands.
And it can come in the form, they say it comes in 100. Like it says that I'm driven by 100 forms of fear. So like my disease, my addiction today will show up. It shows up every day. It can show up. I can go to bed with prayer. I can wake up with prayer, and I can still wake up restless, irritable, and discontent, like they talk about. Mm-hmm. And they say that it's cunning and baffling and powerful. And I believe all that to be true. And I experience that. But I've got quick resolve today that I didn't have early, like you're talking about, because we transcend it and we get into solution. We get a tool belt, right?
That's exactly right.
Goes back to like, what were some of those moments for me of growth? It was like, all right, listen, that guy over there, he's doing that. That guy's not for me.
Yeah.
I'll see him at a meeting. I'll say hello. I'll be cordial. I'm no better or worse. The moment I walk through a room, the playing field is level. We're both just trying to get to midnight sober. That was a good one. I had an old timer tell me one time, he was like, listen, kid, Boston guy, listen, Eddie from Dorchester. He's like, Mark, he's like, just make it to midnight, kid. And I was like, I like that. I'm a counter. I was in finance for 20 years. I like that. I can get to midnight. One day at a time. It was like a little hokey in the beginning.
Yeah.
All right. Like, all right, go hour by hour. No, I'm going to get to midnight, and I'm going to try to pack my day with a meeting and a fellowship and growth. And man, when I first got clean, I had no idea. If you told me that you and I would be sitting here talking about recovery and solution, forget it. I used to hear guys talk about solution. April 3rd, 2008 is my sobriety date. Right. And what a journey.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love talking about this stuff. I love hearing about personal growth and journeys. And you're right. I mean, it is one day at a time, but don't turn your back on the past. The past is what you build your life on. And I know we regret some of the things listen, I got regrets, but I'm not going to live in shame and guilt. Every building, you go downtown, you see the most beautiful buildings, right? And they're shiny and they're glass and they're steel. What are they built on? They're built on a base of mud and dirt and rock and hard stuff. Well, that base is my past. And I get to build the greatest temple I want to build on top of that stuff. Without that, it's weak. People who don't, and I'm not going to say normal people or, because none of them will talk to me, so I'm not sure. But but some people who haven't experienced what we've experienced, there's a flaw in their character that they don't know the dark side. And we've got that, which actually puts us ahead. I say today that I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic, not because I'm grateful I'm in recovery. Of course I am. I'm grateful that I had this disease because I got a chance to see things most people will never see, which makes my gratitude, my ability to love, and everything else that much greater.
Listen, gratitude. When I first got clean, my sponsor used to make me do 100 gratitude list item every single day. What I didn't know about gratitude was that when you're living in gratitude and you're actually taking action, whether it's penmanship and writing it, speaking it, experiencing it, it opens up your arteries different. Blood flows, dopamine, serotonin levels, everything spikes when you live in gratitude. These are little sound bites that I didn't know until I started to study and started to understand and be willing to receive information. I was not grateful. There was no part of me. I was cocky and arrogant. I got this. I can do it. Gratitude opens up the heart. But what you were just talking about, like where brokenness comes in, like all that mud and the rock and the cement. I have more losses in my life at 47 years of age than I have wins. Mm-hmm. I am winning today. I celebrate it. I'm not proud. I don't boast, but I will say I am winning because, like you said earlier, I am moving forward every single day, chipping away. But it's all my losses that built my character to make me strong enough to be able to win.
Exactly. And to appreciate the wins.
Really, to appreciate them.
I mean, how many people do we know? I'm sure you know these people who have a great job, great family, everything's fantastic. They sit down for Sunday dinner and all they do is bitch and moan about everything.
I think that's
whereas, you know what? If I had a can of SpaghettiOs and a one ray of sunshine, I was ahead of the game and I was feeling good.
Yeah.
And when I'm with my family, it doesn't matter what the occasion. I am so appreciative because I know what it's like to sit at the table with them and not be there.
Yeah.
I'm there, but I'm not there.
Yeah.
And when you experience those things, gratitude comes easy. And when I'm going to tell people a lot, we don't talk about this a lot, but the next step in gratitude, once you start practicing gratitude, go back and double check that gratitude and make sure you value the things that you're grateful for. Because I am grateful for my children every day, but most of my life, I did not value the love I had for them. Now I do.
Wow.
So add value to your gratitude now. I am grateful for this, and this has such extreme value to me.
That's good.
Because without the value, if I devalue what I have, it's no longer it's not my anchor anymore. Something else could attract me over here. How can I trade my family and my life for a glass of scotch with that much liquid in it? That much liquid, and I'll trade away my kids and my wife and my house and my car and my job? It's because I already devalued all that. Keep the value. Be grateful, but make sure you value everything you have.
That's that. I had no idea what we were going to talk about today. You just gave me a nugget that is going to transcend.
Yeah, that'll be $13.50, please. Our hour's up. Thank you very much.
Somebody pay him. Somebody pay this guy.
But that's what happens
Yeah.
when people who want to grow get together.
Yeah.
And they share ideas. And just the stuff you share with me is going to stay with me. I'm going to rewatch this. I'm going to replay some of that stuff. That's the beauty of this.
Yeah.
Growth isn't just going out there and everything's hard. It's just opening yourself up to ideas and listening and sharing. And that's huge, right?
It's huge. Valuing the things that you're grateful for, though.
Yeah.
Like what you have no idea. That right there. Gosh.
You can write on your list. People write on a list, I'm grateful for the bird singing on the twig outside my window. But does that really have the value? You know, if I'm grateful for my kids, because that's one of the things that really killed me. So how can I do that when I have kids that I love? Then I started to believe maybe I don't love them. No, I did love them, but I did not value that love. I did not realize how fragile it was and how important it was. And so I became grateful for it. And then I learned to value it. And now, you know, I'm the richest guy in the world, and I don't have a dime in my pocket. I'm the richest guy in the world.
You know, it's funny. The other day, my kids want to watch this show sometimes. It's called Is It Cake? Have you ever seen it?
No, I'm
It's
afraid of this.
Yeah, it's where they get all these chefs, these gourmet chefs together, and they all bake cakes.
Oh,
And then, you know, let's say they all had to make a microphone, and there's 4 microphones. One of them is cake, and they all look like microphones.
what are the other ones?
Microphones, or made out of wood or plastic.
Oh,
And then there's maybe one real microphone, and then one is cake. So microphone, cake, and you got to vote. So my kids, they like it, and they want me to be involved in it. And it's 9:15 at night, and I've been up since 3:30, 4 a.m. going. And I'm grateful for my kids, and I'm grateful for the time because it's about to be bedtime. Maybe they're showered, maybe they're stinky from coming home from soccer practice. And my wife says to me the other day, she says, "Could you put your phone down?" I'm like, "Yeah, but this is a father whose son is in our care, and I need to respond to this." She'll put her hand over my phone. She's like, "Can you just be present?" Now, it's not all the time, but that happened. She said, "The kids are going to turn around and they're going to look to see if you're watching." Sure enough, the kids turned around as I'm putting the phone down. They were like, "Dad, this is awesome, right?" That was a moment for them, for validation of the time that we're spending with them.
absolutely.
And I'm grateful that my wife, you know, she pointed that out, because it's not that I don't value it. It's just I'm putting that father and his son in that moment over the moment. Now, listen, I show up, man. It's like bedtime. I'll cook breakfast most days of the week. I mean, my wife is phenomenal at home. She's an incredible mom. So I can't take any credit. I take 0 credit in my own, you know, but it's in those moments that I think that I can be better. But that's really what it is, because in 2024, the world that my children are growing up in, it's wild out there. And if I'm not real mindful of the messaging,
Absolutely.
the main thing when it comes to parenting that I'm focused on, which is kind of what we've been talking about, what is the story my children are telling themselves about themselves? And how do they hear daddy's voice when I'm not around? When they're in school, when they're with their friends, when they're on the soccer field, when they're out at an event, how are they going to make decisions differently than maybe we did when we were kids? So I'm very mindful of the words and the messaging I put in their head. But you bring up this value, like the value and the gratitude. It's kind of what my wife was on the other night. Yeah. And I really do want to appreciate or just show my appreciation for you bringing it up, because I can just do better at that.
Yeah, I don't think there's many greater joys in life than having your child ask you to share in their happy, joyous moments.
Especially when you don't care if it's cake or not.
Yeah.
I don't really care if it's cake or not. Like, it's kind of wild.
But, and it's those moments that are the moments that they'll remember forever.
Correct.
That time that Dad guessed the wrong wrench and it wasn't cake. Right. And then we all started laughing and root beer came out of his nose. But those are the moments that last forever. Yeah. Not in what the story we don't want is Dad was absent, because if we were going to be absent, we should have just stayed out there. We got sober to be present.
Yes.
To be present for those that we love, for those that are in need, for our higher power, and for ourselves. We're to be present. And it's a full-time job. Being a human being is a full-time job. Yeah. I don't know who the hell came up with being human and being nice is part-time. It's such bullshit.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Just be good.
Well, how many people rent space in your head, but you don't get paid for it?
Yeah. Like,
how many thoughts do we have? The average human being has over 30,000 thoughts in a day. The average. That's average. There's nothing about you that's average.
Now, for the male human being, that half of those are sexual. The rest we'll count the rest of them.
Maybe more.
Maybe more than half.
Let's be honest. We're talking about the truth today.
But you're right, Mark. We all are in this game of let's make a big deal. It's like, I need trauma. I need problems.
Right.
Guess what? You don't need them. You're just used to having, you want to challenge and have problems and feel sorry for yourself. What if we were happy all the time? How much torture would that frickin' be? Why couldn't we be happy all the time?
I think that's how God wants it. I think God wants us to be happy, joyous, free, walking in the light. And then whether it's this thing or the people that we surround ourselves with, just our friends. Like, there's a lot of people out there that just don't want other people to do well. Yet people keep those people around because they co-sign BS. Like, I know that my wife had, and she'll probably watch this. She's got some friends that I could probably say, babe, like, they're good people. They're good people. They're not hurting anybody, but they don't build you up. You're an incredible mom, wife. Listen to this. My wife, she's a wife. Well, she's a woman first. She's a mom. She's a wife. She's a daughter. She's a sister, and she's a friend. She's a contributor. She's got like 7 different personalities right there that she has to please before she's an even independent person. So
shout out to you, Sybil.
Hey, here we go. Multiple personalities.
Yeah,
I'm with
go.
You. But the point is like, I'm over here doing this work and I watch her do her own work, but then maybe she still has friends that are trying to pull her down. She's got to lift those people up. And that goes back to the kids thing, right? So it's like doing this change thing and seeking new information. If you're married, you got to do it together. You got to be growing in the same direction. Otherwise you grow apart. That's the point.
Mark, tell me about Marc-Effron.com. What do we got there?
Yeah, so we rolled out Marc-Effron.com. There's a link there to some of my social media feeds. There's some topics, some articles that are on there, but ultimately the direction that we're going is I've been asked to speak quite a bit. I'll be speaking May 11th in Boca Raton at an event where there's going to be a little over 1,000 people, and that's going to be to raise awareness within the mental health and substance abuse. Not the business side of things, but just to bring awareness to have healthier conversations. I've been asked to speak a lot. So that's a place that people can go and ask me to come in and speak to families, loved ones, school systems. I speak within sports agencies quite a bit as well, because I can relate a lot to the athlete. So that's, the new platform that I rolled out recently.
Excellent. Mark, I got to say, man, it's always a pleasure. I mean, I wish we had all the time in the world. But you're a busy guy.
I appreciate it.
And you got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Will you commit to do this again with me sometime?
Love to.
All right, tomorrow afternoon.
All right,
No,
I'll zoom it in. I'll zoom it in.
We'll talk. You can actually be on your setup, and I could be here, and we could do a show together.
This is awesome.
But I would love to explore more of living in recovery, a little less about the addiction, a little more about just living in recovery.
Love that.
And growing. So, we cool with that?
Cool with that, brother.
My friend.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, go to marc-effron.com, or like we mentioned before, if you want more information about Legacy, you could call 888-858-0137 or go to intake@legacyhealing.com, or certainly check out their website. This is a great organization if somebody you know needs help. And as I always tell you, if somebody you know has mental health or a substance abuse disorder, don't wait. Make the phone call. If you got an extreme case going on, call 988 for mental health. Call the police if you have to call them. I know we're afraid that somebody's going to hate us because we made a phone call. I hope they hate you for a good long life. I really, really do. But we can't wait anymore. The world has changed. Times have changed. And the days of stepping over, sitting in somebody who's in the street so you can get a good seat at church, those days are over. You want to be of service to the people who are in the street. And remember, every day, do 2 nice things for yourself, 1 nice thing for somebody else, and you'll never go wrong. Mark,
God bless, brother.
Take care, brother.
Thank you.
We'll catch you next time right here on Sober Life Podcast. Bye-bye.